shit. Here we go again.
Low, low, man. Low, low, man.
You like contracts, right? You're a contract guy.
I read contracts instead of conventional pornography, yes.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Andrew Esquire, and this is Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. I'm here on time, no scuff. What's up? I did forget my water, so maybe that's scuff today. I don't know. Does that count, chat? Does that count? Is it scuff to not have my water today? I actually think I really I really need my water. I actually might run a you know what? I'm gonna run another intro. I'm gonna run another intro here so I can get my water. We'll do that. We'll do that. That doesn't count as scuff, right? It doesn't count as scuff. Let's run the Somali intro, and I'm gonna go sprint and get a water.
Low, low, man.
There we go. I didn't even have to use the whole Somali intro. Only part of it. Is it half a scuff? It's half a scuff. Cheers, guys. This is not an advertisement for Evian, right? This is not an advertisement. But good to see you guys here today. What's up, everybody? Joanne Ripper said, supporting this community. Love Legal Mindset. And Danielle. Danielle is one of the best mods ever. She takes on far more than she should, does far more work than she should, and tolerates a whole lot. She's been with me from almost the beginning of my channel. So, certainly since the beginning of since it was relevant. So big love to Danielle. She does a ton of work behind the scenes. And if you guys want to support people like Danielle, you can go over to my Ko-Fi, Ko-Fi/Andrew Esquire, to support the Mindset team. That's kind of a broader family. It's not just the SCT, the Somali Conviction Team. It's not just them. It's everybody, the mods, you know, the other people behind the scenes, and all the other folks that are helping out in general, broadly. So that's over on Ko-Fi/Andrew Esquire, so that it would be much appreciated. Jaffa Greg, welcome as a new member. Shimazu Takuma says, here's something for the early scuff water break. And Billy Oak said, there's no scuff. This Andrew is an imposter. No, I there's always something in there. There's always something in there. Big D is a great mod. Yes, Big D. Even though she's not that big. She's actually kind of tiny. She's actually kind of small. I met her in person. She's very small, but has a lot of power in a small package. But anyway, she's probably blushing right now because this is too much attention. So let's move on. So today's going to be interesting. We're going to be talking about all the cast of characters today. We're going to be going into Hasan. We're going into Asmongold. We're going to be going into Denims. We're going into the nuisance streamers, Somali, Vitali. Even the Eggman. We're going to be getting into everybody. We're going to be inside everybody today, deep inside of a lot of streamers today. We're going to be very deep, legally and objectively, right? Not drama. But, we got to get inside there for the law, for the law. And then we're going to really be getting into this battle between Twitch and Kick. And what I'm trying to distill it to is I'm trying to distill this to the legal and objective elements. And one of the really problems that I have with not just Kick, it's Twitch and other platforms, and especially content creators, and what the problem is. And actually, I agree with Hasan a little bit, and not really intentionally. I think the way that Hasan intended it wasn't for someone like me to agree with him, but I agree with Hasan, but for different reasons than I think Hasan was trying to make, right? So we're going to get into exactly how I agree with him and how I don't agree with him, etc. So yes, Dr. Eggman did nothing wrong. I object. Sneaky Violence says this is not a scuff. This is a tribute. Tankrat with 50 legal mindset membership.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
We did it, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Tank Rat. Very based. And you've received a membership from Tank Rat. Please say thank you to the Rat. He has been around for a while. He's been an amazing donor, been a supporter of this channel. I got him hooked on VTubers. It is what it is. But thank you for that. And anybody who's got a membership, whether it's free and through a gift or whether you paid for it, will have access to the member stream. I always do at least one, usually two a month. So stay tuned for those. So thank you, Tank Rat. All right. So let's just get into it. Why should I just whip out my PP? Is it too early? We only have 800 people in here. I mean, usually I wait for 1,000 to whip out my PP, but I guess sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You got to start early. Okay, so let's just jump into this and whip out my PP. Now, this PP is substantial today. There's a lot of PP to get through. I entitled it Hasan versus Kick, but I was going back and forward on this one. And yeah, there might be a little bit of lag because the internet connection has been kind of wonky. I'm going to have to call them up and see what's going on there. But Hasan versus Kick. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking this is going to be some drama, or maybe you're thinking this is going to be about him licking the Chicago bean. And yes, while I was researching this topic, I found this photo and I was subjected to it. And therefore I had to subject all of you into this because I've been to Chicago. I've seen the bean and I know how dirty the bean is. So this to me, yeah. No, we're not going to be talking about this. We're not talking about this at all. We're going to be talking about his comments while I believe he was reacting to Tectone or something. I don't even know what was going on like exactly before this, but the clip of his reaction here. Now, I'm not going to play this in the Fast Facts version, but I am going to play this for you guys because, of course, I want you guys to hear the clip. But he has a statement that he makes about Kick. And I want you guys to like listen up to what he has to say and listen carefully because there are ways in which he is right and there are ways he's missing the mark. And there's also hypocrisy, a ton of hypocrisy in here. So we're going to get to all of that on the channel today. We're going to cover all of this. Okay, here we go. We're going to listen to the first. This is a 2.5 minute clip. We're going to listen to the first 2 minutes.
Moving further and further away from bringing back some semblance of shame. Okay, there are so many motherfuckers who just like wear.
By the way, okay, I can't even not call him out right away. It's very funny he mentioned shame because if anything, a lot of the people that he associates with and a lot of the things he quote unquote backs could very, very, very much use a concept of shame. I'm just saying. That's just, I got to throw that out there. So to advocate the concept of shaming people, something which I am well familiar with culturally, I've traveled to many places that highly implement shame, but a lot of the folks I see him associating with do not understand that concept. They are indeed shameless.
This kind of like shameless behavior on their sleeve, like it's a badge of honor. Like we're just making villains, man. We have ruined an entire generation. I swear to God. The dominoes fell in the worst possible. The dominoes fell in the worst possible direction. Okay. A crypto casino is launched. It's called Stake. Okay.
So he's talking about stake.com. Now there is a valid point buried beneath here about stake.com. There is a valid point. He's not going to articulate it well, but there is a valid point.
Start funneling a shit ton of money to some of the top content creators on this platform on Twitch. They start getting a bunch of people hooked on online gambling, a bunch of teenagers hooked on online gambling. Some content creators come out and speak out against that thing, myself included. Twitch realizes maybe it's not the best thing to allow this crypto casino to just like run amok on this website. And they say no more Kick or no more Stake on Twitch. Then because they're printing money, like endless amounts of money, no overhead whatsoever, no rules, no regulation. It's all in crypto. As crypto goes up, the fucking net worth goes up as well. These guys go, fuck it. We'll just make our own goddamn website. Then they created Kick. Kick created an entire generation of shitheads. Okay. Kick streamers have irreparably caused damage to the collective psyche of the youth. Okay, people just behaving
I like how he says the youth as if many of the quote unquote youth aren't his fan base as well. It's very interesting.
in the worst ways possible with no repercussions whatsoever, and actually getting benefits out of behaving in the worst ways possible in broad daylight, in public. And in that process, this became significantly more normal. It just like became normal to be evil and gross and awful. And I don't know what to say about that. It's crazy. God, it's also
So there you go. So then he goes off to about ranting about X being a place full of Nazis, etc. The typical, Hasan jibber jabber, right? Let's focus on Kick. So why is he bringing up Kick? Well, there's two main reasons why he's bringing up Kick, and then the PP handles all the rest of tonight. So we have a very girthy PP to get us through the night. Real quick, the Professor Keem became a new member, and Mayur Manuhanya says, how come Twitch did not get called out by U.S. lawmakers for platforming a terrorist supporter? I think there were people that called it out. The question is, why hasn't it been prosecuted yet? Well, that's a different thing. Is it risen to a level where they feel the need to do that, right? But I think there's people paying attention, certainly. Also, Banky says for 5, here's a swear jar coupon. I always need one when I'm talking about Hasan. I'm summoning the spirit of Grandpa Atozi. And I am not swearing as much as possible. All right, so let's talk about why Hasan hates Twitch so much. Why Hasan, who is a Twitch streamer, hates Kick so much. Well, there's a lot of reasons. One reason is because they are losing market share. This is their Spanish-speaking viewership. It's pretty clear what's happening here. And this is last month. Or actually, this is, the couple weeks, last month, right? June and July. You can see what's happening. Kick is pulling away in certain markets. Twitch does not like that. They don't like that at all, because as Kick gains market share, they will get access to a lot more, right? And they will grow and expand, etc., right? And another reason why they don't like that is because you got Papa Asman over here, and then you got Hasan, right? And Hasan is looking at Papa Asman streaming on Kick, and because of this blood feud, it's more of like a one-way blood feud, but whatever. Because of his hatred there, he's got to knock the platform of those above him. It's just something he's got to do. He's seething down here at the folks streaming on Kick. And that's a lot of what's behind this. What's behind this is looking at the creators and saying, I don't personally like the creators. However, there are legitimate concerns with all platforms. And this is something that's going to apply to Kick and Twitch. And there is a little nugget of truth, a nugget of legal truth that's buried within the BS that Piker was spouting, mostly for personal reasons. There is actually some truth in there, and I want to get to that tonight. So one thing I want to talk about is he talks about the funding. And this is something that Twitch had a huge problem with because of Hasan and because of his orbiters. If you guys remember when they did that Arab tier list thing going on with Hasan, with Hasan's bestie Frogi Yogi, etc. And they put Ethan Klein under Sabra and all that sort of good stuff. Remember that? Yeah, there was a little bit of an adpocalypse. So people were mad about that. They complained to the advertisers. The advertisers said, "Oh no, it is not good for us to be having anti-Semitic content on a platform. Therefore, we're going to cut your money." So cut your money here, and Twitch got in trouble. And this has happened with other platforms. This happened with the adpocalypse on YouTube, right? Frogi is Frogan. It's Frogan. If you need to see a picture of Frogan, you can Google. I am not going to jump scare you like that right now. So Frogan, who's one of the allies of Hasan, was part of that sort of issue that happened with Twitch. And Twitch has many different advertisers, so they can have their advertising revenue cut. Their advertising revenue is vulnerable. But what Hasan was saying which is correct. At least it was correct at one point. Guys, come on, guys. Let's behave here. Or any Pegasus video. Come on. What he was saying that was correct was that with Kick, with stake.com, no matter how angry your soy jacks are, there is a barrier because Stake doesn't care about crying people on the internet. They just care about casino goes burr. So they are going to funnel money to Kick that's pretty resilient to any complaining from the internet or from other folks. And by the way, this issue back here isn't just with Twitch. X had this problem. When Elon first bought X, people were on a serious campaign to take this guy down. If you remember, they literally created a fake anti-Semitism narrative, which was insane, and spun that up, right? It's not just that. It happened on YouTube. It happened on all platforms, right? So this is what goes on with the Kick. And this is true. This does happen. And it creates a resilient platform, sort of. And we're going to get into the pros and cons of that, of resilient platforms, like I believe Kick is. So let's look at this. So what's the benefit of being a resilient platform, a platform like Kick? Well, a platform like Kick can host a broad range of content. So a platform like Kick can have content creators that can't go elsewhere, right? There's shows like Boss Man Jack, the Kino Casino, etc., that can't be on any other platform. They're too edgy, they're too crazy, whatever. And that's a big benefit in the eyes of some. In the eyes of some, they say, hey, look, I can go to Kick, and there's a lot of content they allow on here. There's stuff that really can't pass or can't fly on other platforms, and therefore they can have it on there. The other huge benefit, and once again, I actually think the majority of people on Kick are fully legally compliant. There's no problem, etc. And the majority of content creators I've met from Kick are actually nice people. But I think the content hosted on resilient platforms like Kick is more likely to match free speech values in the United States, right? So it's more likely that a platform that doesn't have to worry about people complaining and canceling them is more likely to support free speech. Because when you can get canceled like this, you're going to actually ban certain speech that isn't illegal, but it's offensive. And we all know what that is, right? I can't even talk about what that is on YouTube, right? Because there's certain things I can't talk about that will get me in trouble, that are free speech. I can say them legally here in Thailand even, I can say them in America, I can say them in Canada, I can say them in Europe, but I can't say them on YouTube, even though I could say them face to face and it'd be fine. I won't get arrested. I can't say them online. And we know what a lot of those topics are, right? So is that fully compliant with free speech? No. Is a resilient platform like Kick more fully compliant? Yes. Right? And I am a person who likes free speech. So I tend to say that's a benefit, right? There's certain people that want people to be censored. They would not view that as a benefit. I think Hasan may be a type of person that wants to censor people. So he may, yeah. And once again, I'm just mentioning names here. It could be, and there's a lot of streamers that can only happen on Kick, right? Yeah, and of course there are people in the chat mentioned there are bad apples. We're going to get to that. We're talking about benefits. We're going to talk about the cons in a second. The last thing that's very important is it's not controlled by powerful interest groups. Now, the problem is if you get all of your money from one source, yeah, you're not controlled by the same powerful interest groups. So Kick is not controlled by the same powerful interest groups that influence Twitch or YouTube or X or whatever else, but they are controlled by somebody. They're controlled by that company, especially if that's their primary resource. What's the drawback? The drawback is when you run a big resilient company, you feel like you're immune from attack. And that's not true in reality. Ask Pavel. If you guys don't know about Pavel Durov, this is something that I really was thinking about recently. Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram, was locked up when he came to France. And I'm sure they, tried to get a backdoor to Telegram out of him in that one. And this is the trend here, is that they're going to go after the heads of the CEOs, the heads, the management, the engineers, the people that can expose the weaknesses of these platforms. These platforms, even if they think they're resilient, even if they think they are, stronger, they're not impenetrable. None of them are. But beyond that, it is harder to draw the line between what is permissible content and what is impermissible content. Now, I will say this, Kick and other platforms tend to do a better job at moderation as they grow. They improve as they grow. But some creators, not all, take advantage of liberty to cross certain lines. We're talking cultural and legal. And you guys know exactly who we're talking about here. You know exactly who we're talking about here. We're talking about people like Johnny Somali, and we're talking about people like, Vitaly, like the nuisance streamers. The nuisance streamers take full advantage of the fact that the moderation is lighter on Kick to get away with more than they can get away on other platforms. And sometimes it's legal. Sometimes it just offends the culture. But that sort of behavior on another platform might earn them a ban. Right? And obviously, you guys know I have a problem with the extent to which some nuisance streamers take it too far. That being said, I actually don't have a problem with IRL streamers in general. I think the majority are good and nice, maybe even fun, right? And I don't have a problem if IRL streamers are just screwing with other IRL streamers. Because guess what? If you're IRL streamers screwing with other IRL streamers, you've kind of all consented to that to a certain extent. Not to be assaulted or beaten without permission, but let's say you all agreed to be locked in a van together for 30 days for, $1,000 each or whatever, right? Well, in that case, you all consented to it, so it's fine. It may be weird, but, you're allowed to do it. So let's talk about informed consent. And this is the legal thing that I want to get to. This is the thing that really, really gets at the heart of the problem. And to me, the degeneracy on any platform is when you cross the barrier and you are engaging with people that have not given their informed consent, their permission to be engaged with in that way, to be interacted with in that way. So what is informed consent? And I'll explain this, and then I'll get some super chats here. Informed consent is where someone voluntarily agrees. So you have to volunteer. You're not forced to do it. You voluntarily agree to participate in an activity after being fully informed of the nature, the risks, the benefits, and the alternatives. So it's not somebody who doesn't know what's going on. It's not somebody who's random off the street and doesn't know they're being filmed and doesn't know that they're being bothered and doesn't know that, 20,000 people are watching them or whatever else right now, doesn't know that you are profiting off of that, doesn't even know who you are. That's not informed consent. If it's two streamers who know each other and they're like, bro, let's do a collaboration, they're both informed and they can go as far as they want to go. The other thing is that it ensures that individuals, when they get informed consent, you voluntarily agree after being fully informed, you have autonomy to make an informed decision about participation. Here's my biggest pet peeve is that we watched this in the Hank interview. If you guys watched the interview of Hank Yu, he doesn't understand free speech because he thinks free speech includes the ability to infringe on other people's freedom. That's not free speech. That's taking away someone else's freedom. You can say whatever you want to say, but the second you disrupt their life or their business, you are taking away their freedom. They are no longer free to just do what they want to do. You've now stepped in and forced them into a scenario they didn't want to be in. You're taking away their freedom. So that is minimizing of freedom. You are taking freedom away as a net, right? You might feel free to do whatever you want to do, but you are taking away their freedom. So there's a net loss. It's not a good thing. I'll read some super chats here and we'll continue. Linux Guy for 5 says, always surprised Hasan doesn't say yucky along with Cruz. Headbrand for 50 Swedish krona says, Nurasama court stream reaction win. We got to do that. I will do that. King Luigi says, so what's the context of Hasan's Yowie pick? There's no context needed for that one. infamous for 40 Philippine, no, sorry, is that Indonesian rupiah? Kick and Twitch be like Republicans and Democrats. Thank you. Benton says, what a weird time that we live in. I miss 2012. I know. And Meyer, Manuhanya says, no sympathy for Twitch. Twitch has dug its own grave. Unfair enforcement of TOS and platforming Hasan. Tell Tectone to ignore people who call accusing him falsely. Twitch deserves its downfall. We're going to get into this stuff on Twitch because I'm not giving Twitch a pass here. I'm talking a lot about Kick, but remember, these things apply to all platforms. For example, I would call Odyssey or Rumble a fairly resilient platform, and they have some of the same considerations. So I use that term resilient platform not solely because I'm trying to target Kick. I'm trying to expand you guys. There are big platforms like YouTube or Twitch that have a diversity of advertisers. And there are smaller platforms that tend to only have a couple major ones. And there are pros and cons to that. All right, let's get into informed consent. So this is informed consent. So let's say Kick streamer A and Kick streamer B decide to collaborate. Like, let's say it's like Aiden Ross and Asmongold or whatever, right? They have informed consent. Both of the Kick streamers, the content creators themselves, right? They know what they're getting into and they know what's up. They know streaming life, whatever. They're cool with engaging with each other. Unless they're doing something illegal, it's fine. Same thing with engaging cross-platform. And by the way, this asterisk, that also applies here. But I just wanted to give one without the asterisk. So if you are a Kick streamer and you're engaging with a Twitch streamer and you're collaborating, you're streaming together, as long as you are not doing anything illegal, you're fine, right? You're fine. That's totally cool. You guys know the rules of the game. And by the way, content creators all know, I know, everybody else knows, we all know that when you get on the internet, when you step into this ring, you got to be prepared for some heat. Because you're going to get heat. You are going to get heat if you're on the internet. So if you're big on the internet anywhere, people are not going to like you. It's just a fact of the matter. You have to accept that. If you cannot accept that, you are not made for the internet. You should be behind the scenes or doing something else, but you shouldn't be the face. If you're the face, you're going to get some shit, right? People are going to make fun of you. They're going to make fun of your appearance. They're going to make fun of your presentation. They're going to make fun of your information. They're going to make fun of your background. They'll do some nasty stuff. Now, that is all technically okay. You can technically call Denims or Frogan or Asmongold or Tectone or Hasan or anybody. You can call Aiden Ross, whoever. You can call him a stinky poo-poo head, right? And that's a very technical term that I learned in kindergarten, right? You can call them a big meanies, right? Whatever you want to call them, except for you can't defame them and you can't do anything illegal. So you can't make death threats. You can't, threaten them with physical harm. You can't do illegal stuff. And you consent to, when you're online, essentially all of that except for what's illegal. So this is a good example. If you're a Twitch streamer, you may agree to do your own thing, and you may agree to do things your way on your channel, but it's not okay to defame a Kick streamer. So if a Twitch streamer is defaming, meaning calling them a criminal, accusing them of having an STD, accusing them of horrible behavior. That's defamation. That's not okay. You do not consent to that. So for example, and I'm just using random people, this is in no way related to an ongoing collection of data in preparation for a lawsuit. This is completely random. I picked these two people randomly, not based on a clip I saw that one person was collecting information on the other in order to sue in the future. This is not that at all. No, not at all. This is a totally random example. So let's say you're Denims, right, on Twitch, and you're defaming Tectone, right? The Eggman. You're defaming the Eggman. That is something that's not consented to. You do not consent to defamation just because you are a streamer. That's not something you do. So if someone is defaming you, let's say Miss Disloyal Denims over there Disloyal is a loving name for her. It's loving because she totally threw her, the mods under the bus in the suit with Ethan Klein. If you are Denims and you say that, a certain Eggman is a criminal, that is defamation, unless you have proof that it's true. That is objectively true. You can pull the court records. You got to be very careful about that. What are these pictures? They are the best pictures I could find of these two. This was the best picture I could find of Denims. I know. It was really hard. I looked all over the internet, and this was the best one I could find. I don't know where you find pictures of Denims for thumbnails. I don't really know. And Tectone, I'm pretty sure this is his actual form. I'm pretty sure this is his real form. Okay. Another thing that's not consented to is you do not consent to having a streamer who has thousands of people watching live to threaten you with, whether it is fake or real, what appears to be a weapon, whether or not it's real. It doesn't matter. It's actually irrelevant. You do not consent to that. That is indeed, it could be considered by law enforcement if they choose to look at it and take it up. This could be considered criminal behavior, potentially. It certainly could be considered behavior in violation of TOS. You don't consent to that. That's something you don't consent to just by being on the internet. Being on the internet does not open you up to say, you know what? I'm on the internet. I can be threatened today. That's normal. No, that's not normal. It's not okay. Right? It's not okay. Another thing you don't consent to, and now we're going to nuisance streamers, is Johnny Somali. Right? This is why you guys know me. We're covering Johnny Somali this week. We're going to have his trial coming up on Wednesday, the 13th, 13th Asia time. So it's going to be 13th Asia time. It's about 4 p.m. But I will start my coverage a little bit early. Obviously, that's Seoul time. So I'm going to start a little early. We'll be covering it live. We're going to have a preview tomorrow. But I didn't show in this picture, he's in 7-Eleven. He's eating ramen, right? What I didn't show is I didn't show the little old lady. There's a little old Korean lady who was working at this store. She just wanted to work at a store part-time to make some money, probably money to give to her family, maybe take care of herself, maybe take care of her, partner, whatever else, right? She just was trying to make a little bit of money. When she took this job at 7-Eleven, she was not consenting to be yelled and screamed at by an unhinged streamer who's doing it for clout and money and exposure. That was not something she consented to. And in Korea, by crossing that line, that was obstruction of business. It was not throwing the ramen alone. It was the harassment in crossing that line, because that woman never consented to be harassed like that. Never consented to that. Ever. And most of Somali's victims never consented to be dealt with or treated the way Somali did. They were not fellow streamers. Now, some of them were, and I do have a different standard for the kick streamers that knowingly engage with this. Because if you knowingly engage with it, there is a different standard. Now, that being said, for example, with Moxie, so if you remember Moxie, the blonde kick streamer, Somali threatened to have a gang of Somali men, assault her. We'll put it that way. Assault her in a way that rhymes with grape, right? And you don't consent to that. Even as a kick streamer, you don't consent to those sort of threats. You don't. So that's not something you consent to. Beyond that, you got Vitaly, right? And this is something that happens with all nuisance streamers. And this is the core of my problem. My problem isn't with the streamers themselves. My problem isn't with them having fun with their friends or doing whatever else want to do. The problem is these people, the security guards, and also Vitaly was harassing an elderly woman, right? Both the security guards and the elderly woman, all of those people did not consent to be harassed. None of them did. They didn't ask for that. My problem with IRL streaming is not IRL streaming. It's that they're getting people involved who do not want to be involved. If you're just sitting down and eating dinner, or you're out with your friends or your girlfriend, or you're out with your sister, brother, mom, whatever, you're not signing up to be in front of thousands of people mocked for money on TV, for money and clout. And at the end of the day, if people can come together and platforms can say, hey, we agree with that. We are not going to endorse any sort of content, whether it's defamation, I'm looking at you, Denims, whether it's harassment, the nuisance streamers, or other illegal activity, Mr. Piker, right? If the platforms can truly come together and say, we're not going to do this, I think that would be better. I think if they set a standard that everybody who's being interacted with needs to have given informed consent to be interacted with that way, when it crosses those boundaries, I think that's a good boundary. I think that's why you have the TOS. And obviously, we have a situation in which we have a platform, at least one, but there's multiple, that are not enforcing TOS. And also some of them can do a better job at enforcement. They just simply can do a better job at enforcement. So let me read these super chats. I'm going to get to my conclusion here. Patrick S says, Hasan is mad they didn't offer him SQC's contract. Apparently he was offered, he was talking about a no gambling contract. I watched some Aiden Ross clip that, it just wasn't, it was about money, or didn't get enough. I don't know. But usually it's like sour grapes. Sour grapes, where the fox can't reach the grapes, and so he says they're sour. That's usually what it is. It's like you couldn't get what somebody else has. You're jealous. Now you got to say it's horrible, right? You can't be on Kick making a bunch of money, and therefore it's the worst place ever, and it's with the most degenerate people. I think the vast majority of Kick streamers, and the vast majority of streamers in general, by the way, I think the vast majority of content creators are good people. I think that's also true of humanity. I do think the vast majority of people are good. There's a slice of what Hasan correctly identifies as degenerates that ruin it for everybody. But the people that I would identify as degenerates and that he would identify as degenerates are completely different. And he may or may not be included in that slice of degeneracy, right? I'm not going to say. I'm trying to be objective and neutral here. Hannah, as a new member. Enzo for Ted says, ultimately, I like Kick a lot. If they allow my favorite shows like Mad at the Internet, Josh Moon Show, Kino Casino, Ghost Politics, True Capitalist Radio to stream, they're good in my book. This is what I'm saying. So Enzo, all those shows, Maddie, Kino, Ghost Politics, they wouldn't be able to exist on other platforms because they're saying things you can't say on other platforms. And I think it's important that there's a place for these places to exist, because I think all of those shows you mentioned have the right to exist, right? You don't have to watch them. That's your freedom, but they can exist. And if people choose to go watch them, they can go watch them. I think that's good. And I like that. And that's a positive. Pizza King says, time for work. Lots of bench warrants to issue. Awesome. Have a good day, law nerds. And don't ignore your citations. Do not ignore your citations. Patrick S says, can Twitch be legally held responsible for the continuous platforming of defamation and constant calls for violence to people who support Israel or don't support Palestine from Hasan's orbiters? There are a lot of people threatening that. I've said this before. Is it possible? Hear me out. Is it possible? Yes. But it needs to take somebody who has a lot of money and a lot of motivation to go through with that. And you can see that sometimes, even if you've got money and motivation, look at the Carano case. A lot of people in Gina Carano's case are mad that she didn't fully go through with it and didn't take it to trial, etc. Well, her personal motivations were satisfied. And oftentimes, even if, let's say it's a person sues Twitch, maybe Twitch offers them a payout and they're individually satisfied. Although it disappoints everybody out there because they want it to be the thing that takes down Twitch. And you have to be very careful, because a lot of lawsuits you get emotionally invested in because you're interested in the principle of the lawsuit. But the person who's suing has a personal motivation. They may also believe in the principle, but they have a personal motivation. And at the end of the day, it's their own personal motivation that pushes whether the trial or whatever else goes forward or not. So let's say Asmongold was to sue Twitch. I'm just throwing something out there, or Tectone or whatever else, right? Some streamers to sue Twitch, Aiden Ross, whoever. They all sue Twitch. And Twitch offers them a bunch of money, and they say, we're going to let you come back on the platform, and we're going to give you this like preferential status. We're going to put you on the front page. And they're happy with that. They might take that. And they might say, oh yeah, that's great. Huge payout. We're going to get preferential status. Cool. But people that would want Twitch to go down would not be happy. right? So that's the reality. That's the real sauce. Would Hasan survive on YouTube Live? I don't think so. I do not think so. Mayor Manuhanya for 100 says, wait, so threatening someone with a gun on the internet is not normal? Who would have known? Yeah, that's not normal. And it's typically not legal. And the fact that Twitch gave him a pass on that is very dangerous for Twitch. Extremely dangerous because they're pushing boundaries of legality. Enzo says for 5, I just want the nuisance streamers to leave the internet or at least go to Jack Doherty's party website and be losers over that. Yeah, that's fine. Go to the other websites. Go to the other websites. Dusty Carrier for 5 says it's an unfortunate truth that principle is often not worth continued litigation of the individual. That's exactly right. And guys, on this channel, I'm realistic. Some people don't like it. Some people get mad at it. But I'm going to tell you the truth because I know how the reality of lawsuits work particularly because I represented corporations. And corporations don't look at lawsuits for principle. They do not sue for principle. They sue for money or to establish a precedent because in the long term, it'll protect their economic future. It's about money. It may not be short-term money. It may be long-term money, but it's about money. And when you see that lens, you see how many lawsuits are dealt with purely on that basis of money. I'm not saying it black pills you, but it gives you a realistic view. I'd say more of like a legal red pill, right? Where you say, okay, yeah, people can be compromised. Even the most people you think are good and wholesome, whatever, they can be compromised. If the dollar number is right, they can be compromised. The only question is, what is the dollar amount and what is the thing that they have to do? Right? But that is the reality. Money does talk. By the way, of you in the chat, 47% of you think Kick will prevail. 19% say Twitch, and 34% say they'll both have about the same power level. So let me ask you guys this also question too. If you had a chance to sue Twitch, would you settle if they offered you, let's say, $50 million? Say yes or no. $50 million, a lot of money. That's a significant amount of money, right? If you had a chance to sue, you're a content creator, and you could sue them, and it might do a lot of damage, but they would give you $50 million. Would you settle with them? Let's say it's an important lawsuit. So someone said they need more context. It's a lawsuit that could do a lot of damage to them. It could, in fact, make them change their business model. Be honest, because I know there's going to be some BS here, right? It could let's say it could get rid of Dan Clancy, right? It could purge their leadership. Would you settle with them? GamerCon says Hamas Diddy Piker is just bad because Tectone, Asman, and Nux are thriving on Kick, and if we live on YouTube, he will be reported ASP. Yeah, no, he wouldn't survive 2 seconds, right? Big Buddha says my popcorn's in the microwave, ready to watch Tectone and Twitch and get what they deserve. That's right. Tectone's got it coming for him. Banky says, what are the chances for 5? The FBI is paying Hasan like they did with Baked Alaska. I don't know. I don't put it past anything nowadays. You know, people will tell me things that they thought, 10 years ago were conspiracy theories, but they really aren't. They really weren't. It's just truth. And Dusty Carrier said, for some people, however, money is unimportant. That's true. If you already have it, usually. For most people who say money is unimportant, haven't been poor. It's typically people who already have the money. But that's not untrue. There are certain people that don't care about money. Johnny Depp and Depp versus Heard, because he already had money, he didn't really care about getting Amber Heard's money. He cared about clearing his reputation. Shimazu for $2.99 Australia says, no BS, $50 million I can settle. Those who say no, saints. Or they already have it, right? So let's get to my conclusion here, and then we'll talk about the poll. My conclusion is Kick is a more resilient platform due to their philosophy and funding mechanism. So in this way, in the first bullet point here, guys, the first bullet point, Hasan and I actually agree. We actually do really agree that because Kick does not rely on the same funding mechanisms as YouTube, as Twitch, that is absolutely a strength. the vast majority of Kick creators are law-abiding and compliant with free speech. Now, I've met a lot of the creators that stream multiple platforms, and a lot of them stream on Kick. I'll be probably doing a podcast with some of them this week, even some folks that are on Kick. I'm happy to deal with them, and they're usually nice people, like the majority of humanity, right? And yes, Kick has screwed up in the past, but they typically improve, and they can improve. And they have improved. They booted Somali when I covered Baby Hayes, the nuisance streamer Baby Hayes. They booted that guy out of the partner program. I think they knocked Vitali, right? So they can improve, and they can knock people out, and they can probably tighten up their rules for what is and isn't allowed on Kick. And I think, and I'm not against, I may end up streaming on Kick at one point. Who knows? I have to look at the money. Once again, I'm honest. I'm like, yeah, if the money's good, I don't turn my nose up at money, right? However, Twitch content creators, let's turn this back on Hasan. Twitch creators are really the ones that are shamelessly crossing non-consensual boundaries. So Hasan was right. The culture and what people are teaching the youth, by the way, Hasan, the demographics are the youngest on Twitch. So if anybody is affecting the youth, I think we know who that is, right? And yes, it's a problem because of Twitch creators as well, because they can't continue to commit defamation, to do acts that could be potentially illegal, and just continue to get away with it. That is not a good thing. And that's something that Twitch needs to tighten up on. They need to extremely tighten up on. But beyond that, all the platforms can coexist. And I think everybody can win. I think everybody can win. You can choose your own poison. And I think that when you look at this, you can start to have an abundance mentality, which means, everybody can win, everybody can prosper, there's enough for everybody. This is the actual truth. People like Hasan live in the scarcity mentality where there can only be one, right? I've got to be the number one. I've got to dethrone Asman. I've got to do all this stuff because I've got to be number one. Well, and not just Hasan, not just Hasan. A lot of people do. The pie grows. As you go up, as more people come in, the pie grows. There's more people coming in. More competition is good, and there's also more consumers coming in. So more competition, more streaming is good. More streamers is good. And I don't see how it's not. Let me read through these. Ultra Noob says if you're really offering $50 million in a settlement, could the amount go even higher if it goes to trial? That's what their $50 million is betting. Well, that's a point, and that's why there's the question. That's true. Could it go higher? Gamercrom said, but you could also lose. Gamercrom gifted 5 legal mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Very base.
Yes.
Lex Luho says every law school should have the following etched above their doorway: every man has a price. Every man and woman has a price. It's very, very true. It's very, very true. Marcin Wazak said, Kick has left a very bad taste in my mouth thanks to the unmentionables. It will take a lot more arguments to convince me otherwise, but the sweet money. Well, once again, I do think the unmentionables, people like Somali, right? They are the minority. Like, look at how many streamers are on Kick. It's not all Johnny Somali, right? And he was booted. So you have to think like, okay, yes, there are certain people who at some point were streaming on Kick, but hey, they got booted. Hey, they're in the minority. They're not the majority. Yuki, for 100 Norwegian kroner, says it entirely depends on how much I was personally affected and how petty I'm feeling. Once again, and you're in the moment. When you're in the moment, you're offered that money. Enzo said, I would settle and I would use the money to invest in Kick streamers similar to a talent corporation. There you go, like Mythic or FaZe. I would put up billboards saying in a PPP voice, Twitch is cringe. That's fine. You can do that. Jack Ko says Hasan's friendship with Twitch CEO Dan Clancy has afforded him an unusual amount, I would say an unholy amount of protection. Hence, getting away with bad behavior, others would immediately be banned for. Exactly. And there's a problem with that. That has led to a certain level of hubris. And like I said, when you think you're immune, is the point in which Dan Clancy is going to end up. Let's go back here. Dan Clancy is going to end up like Pavel Durov. Dan Clancy is going to take a trip somewhere, and he's going to end up having some folks that do not agree with what Hasan does, having a conversation with him somewhere. He better be very careful traveling. I'll just put that way. Because, and once again, that's more of a warning. Like, once again, when you have a certain level of hubris, right, things can happen. Things can happen. That's not even once again, I'm not threatening or anything like that. It's not me at all. I think everybody can coexist. I think everybody can be there. It's things will happen when you think you are impervious to problems. Wedge says, no, it wouldn't settle. I consider it a bribe and my morals simply wouldn't allow it. There you go. Dusty says there's an end game where people host themselves. Well, that might be an end game, but we're not there yet. The Jalbot says, Somali live stream child, what tribe? Miami. Let me convert it. Let's see. So about 2:30 a.m. Miami. So I'm gonna start streaming at 1:30 p.m. Bangkok, which is 2:30 a.m. Miami Eastern time. It's a little late, I know, but we don't set the times. It's in Korea. Come on, guys. Cinda Stay Inferno says, also, you also influence the younger generation. At least you're smart, I hope. Yeah, and once again, the younger generation is getting influence from a lot of sides. From what I understand, the youngest generation, it skews the most conservative in generation, at least the male population. I haven't checked the female stats. I think it might be kind of a diversion there. But there's a lot of different ways younger generations are going. Once again, I'm not going to make a comment on that one way or another. I'm just saying, the younger generations are being influenced from many different sources. Yes. Big Nutty as a member. Bad News Badger says the tide rises all boats in every harbor. It's true. Mr. Paradism says, I'm convinced that Hasan doesn't even believe in most of the crap he's saying. Well, I feel like it goes back to the Brofessor days, where he was just spouting stuff off as the Brofessor and, just doing his thing. I don't even believe he believed his stuff then or now. I believe it's just all one big act, one big shtick. Because, once again, a lot of that stuff, it just comes off as kind of hollow from an LA mansion. Young Lex 313 says, I think people dislike Kick from unnecessary reasons. Yes, gambling is prompted and it's what keeps society alive, but I think people exaggerate how much is pushed to viewers. And the thing is, I think viewers have autonomy. I mean, if you want to make it so that you have to be over 18 and there's age verification, once again, I know some people have a problem with this. I don't. If you want to age verify that you're over 18, that's fine. You're over 18. If you see gambling content, you see it. If you don't like it, click away. And we need to have some personal responsibility for what we watch. It's not the platform's job to be a nanny. If you want to click an option, maybe when you first sign up, there's an option. Don't show me this type of content. Don't show me gambling or firearms or alcohol or whatever else. Maybe allow people to click that, right? Sure. And it'll filter it out. But you got to have some personal responsibility on some level, at some point. Right? Infamous says, what else happens when Twitch suddenly cease to exist? If they suddenly cease to exist, and the main thing is all of the subscribers, all the content, whatever, that would all go away. And there'd be a lot of content creators that were in the dust. Right? And what would they do? They probably go to different platforms. What do they always do? That's what they always do. They always go to different platforms. Every single time this comes up, they will go to a different platform and they'll find a different platform. And by the way, I think a lot of those folks would be successful on other platforms. I don't think they'd have a problem finding other platforms, to be very clear. But they would go there. Yeah, absolutely. And I think many of them will be big streamers. Look at what happens when people get banned off of Twitch and they go to Kick. There's still big streamers on Kick. Maybe they're not as big. Maybe it takes them a while to spin back up. But still. Someone says in Kick settings, you can hide gambling casino. Well, there you go. But maybe just like prompt it right on the beginning. I don't know. I mean, that's just an idea. But yeah, there are ways to get around that. Right. And yeah, someone mentioned they show gambling when there's like during football games, etc. Yes, exactly. Exactly. There's gambling that shows up in other advertising other places. Now, gambling is typically heavily regulated, which is why they want to be on a regulated platform. Okay, shout out to everybody on my locals. Appreciate you guys over there. Veggie Han, Danielle, JP. Appreciate my mods, Danielle and JP as well. Guys, stick around. Fast facts, summarizing it all. I'm going to be back tomorrow for the Somali trial, breed trial. It's going to be great. We're going to catch you up on what to expect, what's going to go down, get you all situated. But until then, stay based. Catch you later. And don't be doing what Hasan is probably doing when he realizes I agree with him. And that's coping and
You are coping and seething. You just can't believe what you're seeing. It's you coping and seething. The truth it is all day, and now you are molding.